Hello there. Alrighty, let's get out our science books, and we're going to be on page 186, finishing or continuing on with weather. I think we have two more lessons in this one. Oh, three, I think. And then we'll be ready to get back into Michigan history. Okay, so we're on lesson 6, I think. Yes, lesson 6. Page 186. How are weather and climate related? Have you noticed patterns in the weather where you live? During certain times of the year, it may rain a lot. The weather may be cool and windy, or it may be hot and dry. The patterns of weather may repeat year after year. This is climate. So, boys and girls, what is climate? Climate is the repeated pattern of weather year after year. Okay, so we talked about how you can have the same types of weather at predictable times. That's the weather pattern. And when the weather pattern happens over and over and over, so it's like when the pattern makes a pattern, that's climate. Okay, and we'll see climate again on the next page. It's one of our green words. All right, the top of page 186. Number 1, where climate data comes from. Suppose you're planning a trip to Florida. Okay, let's just stop right there, boys and girls. Let's just put ourselves in dreamland for just a moment and plan a trip to Florida. Wouldn't that be lovely? Maybe a field trip. What do you think? Does that sound good? Would you pack mittens and boots? Knowing Florida's climate may help you decide. It is warm in Florida for many months, year after year. That is its climate. Climate is an area's expected weather over a long period of time. Climate is not the same as weather. Florida may have some days with cold weather each year, but Florida's overall climate is warm. So it's kind of like how you can have one or two differences, but overall, it's a warm climate. Okay. Now, if you think of New France, as we like to call it, you would have, warmth in the summer, but it tends to be a cooler climate. And if you think about a place like Alaska, where they do, it's not like it snows year round, but that's definitely a colder climate. Okay, so it's cold, probably even more than it's warm. Okay. Florida's climate is warm. A desert is an area with a dry climate. So boys and girls, don't think of desert as hot, although it is. Think of it as dry. So there's a lot of drought. Remember we talked about drought? I don't know, in the last section, maybe the one before that, which is a lack of rain. Okay, it's not just a day or two goes by and there's no rain. It's like sustained lack of rain, such that it's starting to ruin the plants. It's starting to kill the grass. It's starting to change the plants and animals. They're going to have to start adapting. Okay. A desert is an area with a dry climate. It does not rain much in deserts. In a hot desert, it is hot and dry most of the year. That term, most of the year, is a great way to think of climate. It's not once in a while, it's most of the time. Other deserts can be cold. Climate describes the typical temperature and precipitation over a period of time. Scientists figure out the climate for an area by looking at weather data collected over many years. All of these pieces of information gathered together are called climate data. Number 2, climates around the world. Places near the equator get a lot of sunlight and have a warmer or hotter climate. We've talked about that a million times. The equator, can you finish this sentence without reading it? That line that separates the southern hemisphere from the northern hemisphere, or the top half from the bottom half. And remember that it's not a real line, it's an imaginary line, but it's basically the halfway point. Okay, you've got the other half of the earth from here north, the other half of the earth from here south. Okay, it also happens to be a very warm area. The equator is an imaginary line around the earth. It is midway between the north and south poles. Oh, excuse me. Places further away from the equator have cooler climates. The climate is the coolest at the north and south poles. And if you think about it, boys and girls, if this is warm, if you get the furthest away from there, it makes sense it's going to be cold. There are different climates all over the world. So let's talk about tropical climates. Okay. In a tropical climate, are you going to get a bunch of snow and, have your snow pants and stuff? Probably not. Tropical is also going to make me think of a lot of rain, like a tropical rainforest type of thing. Because you get in a tropical garden or a tropical resort, you get a lot of growth of plants and flowers and stuff. You wouldn't get there if there wasn't a lot of rain. Tropical climates. Places near the equator have tropical climates. Oh my gosh, I have the yawns all of a sudden. Excuse me. Places near the equator have tropical climates. Tropical climates are hot. They have high temperatures that do not change much all year round. Many tropical climates are rainy. A tropical rainforest is rainy for much of the year. There can be a thunderstorm almost every day. Other tropical climates may be drier. A savanna is warm all year long, and most have a long, dry season. So it's going to be warm and dry. Not as many trees grow in a savanna compared to a tropical rainforest. So, boys and girls, you've got a great picture there at the bottom that shows you the difference between a rainforest, which is going to be very green, full of plants and animals and vegetation and different layers, really high up to all the way down on the ground. The savanna is going to be more like your desert climate, very dry, very hot, not a lot of rain. And because there's not a lot of rain, there's really not as many plants. I mean, look at the difference there. Oh my heavens. You can see that like this grass where the animals are, that's yellow because it's dried out and kind of dead. It hasn't had any rain. The rainforest is green because it gets so much rain even every day that it just turns everything green and beautiful. Kind of like how things are outside right now because we've had so much spring rain. I've been noticing things are just greening up like crazy. Okay, let's go to 189. Temperate climates. Places further away from the equator to the north and south have different climates. Most of the United States and southern Canada, or New France, have temperate climates. So do some places in the southern hemisphere like New Zealand. Temperate climates have both warm and cold temperatures. So what's a temperate climate? That's a place that has warm and cold, winter and summer. Definitely us. They usually have 4 seasons. The summers in a temperate climate are warm or hot. The winters are cool or cold. Polar climates. And I just noticed those cute little polar bears at the top of the page. Places furthest away from the equator have polar climates. Polar climates are very cold. The north and south poles have polar climates. So do the far northern parts of Canada and Alaska. The land and water are covered with snow or ice for most of the year. At the South Pole in Antarctica, the temperature is below freezing all of the time. Antarctica's climate is cold and dry. So remember, climate means that over most of the time, not that once in a while crazy thing like Florida getting snow maybe, once every 2 years. Okay, that would be something peculiar in the climate. Okay, and boys and girls, also a change in climate isn't a one-day thing. It's like if year after year after year, it starts to be a little bit warmer in a place or a little bit colder. Kind of like actually Michigan. When I was a little girl, we used to get, gosh, probably double the amount of snow that we get now. And over time, over all of those years, the climate has changed. So what becomes normal for Michigan starts to change. Okay, page 190. Using climate data. You have probably eaten corn during the summer. What kind of climate is best for growing corn? Well, the word growing tells you it's going to need water, right? So it can't be a dry climate. And then what does any plant need? That word growing, again, tells you the same thing. It's going to need sun. So most likely you're going to need a warm or temperate climate. Remember, temperate means it's warm and cold. So as long as it's warm during the summer, you'd be okay. Climate data can be helpful to people. Farmers use climate data to decide what crops to plant. Farmers study the temperature and rainfall patterns. Some crops need cool temperatures and dry soil, so they would not grow well in very rainy areas. And think of, again, Michigan in the spring, we get a pretty significant amount of rain. Corn needs plenty of sunshine and a lot of water to grow well. In the United States, much corn is grown in the Midwest. That's our area. Orange trees need warm climates. They are grown in Florida and California. Farmers also use climate data to decide the best time to plant seeds or harvest crops. Engineers use climate data to design buildings. Adobe is a material that keeps homes cool in warm temperatures. Adobe brick is used often in hot, dry climates. Engineers would choose other materials for buildings in a cold, wet climate. So really those climates, meaning what is normal or average, happens most of the time in an area, it really informs a lot of decisions. Some materials just don't work quite as well in a very wet area, okay? Some other materials or plants or any other things that you might be putting in a home or around a home might need the rain. So it all just depends on where you're at. You don't want to put beautiful plants all over the place in a home, in a yard in Arizona, because either you're going to be watering every single day or they're just going to die. So you really do have to think about that. Alrighty, I'll talk to you soon. Go ahead and do your comprehension questions. Boys and girls, please remember with your comprehension questions, you're not looking at the question and saying, well, I think the answer is blah, blah, blah. The reason I put that little spot in there for you to put the page number is because I want you to go right to that spot in the book, okay? I want you to use the book. So if it says something like, what is climate? I want you to go to page 187. There's a spot on the page to write where you are, page 187. And if it says, what is climate? I want you to write from this part in the book, climate is an area's expected weather over a long period of time, okay? I want you to have on that little piece of paper all of the most important parts of lesson 6, but I don't just want it to be the words you use to describe it. I want it to actually be the words right from the book. That way you don't have to reread this whole unit when it comes time to study for the test. Really, if you really studied over those sheets, you would have an excellent way to study for the test and you would have all right answers. Do you know what I mean? So I'm asking you to write down the words that you see in the book. So I should see the book's words. A lot of times you can't write down the book's words on assignments. You have to put it in your own words. This is one of the cases where I really would like you to find it in the book, write down the page number, and then write exactly what it tells you. Because they are definitions. If we're writing definitions, we aren't putting it into our own words. We're, writing exactly what, let's say, the dictionary says. So think of it that way. It's not cheating. It's exactly what I want you to do. Okay? Okay. I'll see you later.